Hello, good evening, and welcome to tonight's edition of UPFront featuring Dr. Kwabena Donkor. In fact, as has been stated, and if you didn't know, the one and only power minister in the Republic of Ghana, in the Fourth Republic, and more importantly, a member of parliament for Pro East, as we delve into the pressing issue of Ghana's current power crisis. We'll be drawing from his extensive experience in the sector. Dr. Donkor also provides invaluable insights into the challenges facing the nation's electricity supply. In fact, as to whether he indeed ended doomsday before John Dramani Mahama left office, he's also come up for some scrutiny. We certainly will be hearing from him once more. We will explore his recommendations for addressing the crisis, including long-term solutions, infrastructure upgrades, renewable energy integration as has been raised, and transparent communication strategies. Join us as we navigate the complexities of Ghana's power landscape and seek a solution to ensure a reliable and sustainable energy for all of us. This is UPFront. Welcome, Doc, to UPFront. I hope you are doing well, sir.
By God's grace, I'm surviving.
I mean, some years ago, somewhere 2015, the amount of pressure that the current minister is receiving were all being heaped on you. It must have been a very difficult time to be in. Pressure from different quarters, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Anyway, you have been in the fuel sector perhaps your entire life, from childhood to all of this. So let me start from this point. I want a proper assessment of Ghana's current power crisis or situation. What is really happening?
Well, it depends on which angle you're looking at it from. If you're looking at it from a purely nationalistic perspective, we will say our challenges can be put into the short, medium, and long term. Today's problems emanated from yesterday's solutions. And what we do today will impact on tomorrow.
Interesting. That sounds poetic.
Yes, but that is the reality. Today, the biggest challenge of today in the short term is fuel supply.
Okay.
We have indigenous gas, but we don't have enough indigenous gas to feed all our plants. That is one.
Really?
Yes.
ECG says they bought fuel. They've used money meant for even the cash water for mechanism to buy fuel, and that they believe that that is enough. ECG rejects some of these claims that you are making about whether there's a fuel crisis or not. In fact, they believe that there is no problem with generation at all, and that is what they've been telling the people of this republic.
Well, unfortunately, that is what you're saying.
But how is that unfortunate? Because they are in charge of the unit.
They are not in charge. ECG is a distribution company. Have you heard from any of the two regulators we have?
The GRECO?
No.
You're talking about Energy Commission and the PURC.
PURC. Have you heard from
PURC has come out to have a battle with ECG over the cash water for mechanism, whether or not there are compliances also in there.
Yes.
They've come out to do that. But we have tried to reach out to the Energy Commission even today, but it hasn't been successful.
Yeah, they haven't stated a position.
That's true.
On fuel supply. Neither has the technical regulator, Energy Commission. PURC is the economic regulator.
Yeah.
Energy Commission is the technical regulator. It is ironic that we have two regulators, and we believe going forward, the two should be merged so we have one regulator.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Didn't that come up in our most recent energy sector plan?
Well,
ahead of things like that were in the pipeline, we're discussing the need to merge some of these units so that they appear to be united on the work they are doing.
Yeah, indeed, going forward, I believe we must have a single regulator for at least the power sector.
Why?
Why? Because it will seal the cleavages that are available. What is exactly technical and what is exactly economic? In between the two, there are cleavages, there are overlaps.
And the overlaps are not taken care of because each side is dealing with their own problems.
Precisely.
So when it overlaps, nobody's really dealing with it.
Precisely. Okay. Or both aim for the same thing. It creates its own institutional friction.
We would interrogate the solutions you have on the table, but you are talking about a gas problem fundamentally now.
Fundamentally now.
Is that the main problem now?
Essentially, yes. There might be other problems, but essentially it's a gas problem. When you shed, like yesterday at peak, you are shedding about 600 megawatts at peak. Why are you shedding? You are shedding because you do not have adequate generation. And you don't have adequate generation because you don't have enough fuel to power the plants. Remember, I stated that we don't have enough domestic gas to power all our plants. That is one. Two, all our gas resources are in the Western Corridor. And we have a number of plants in the Eastern Corridor. So even for the plants in the East, we have to do a reverse flow. The West African Gas Pipeline ordinarily flows from the East to the West. That was how it was constructed. But because our gas assets are in the West, they had to do a reverse flow to bring part of the gas that is unutilized in the Western Corridor to the Eastern Corridor, for which we pay a fee. And therefore, we supplement the gap, the inadequate supply, with imports from Nigeria. We import from Nigeria because we do not have enough domestic gas. And indeed, if we discovered more gas, there will also be other uses for natural gas apart from the power sector. Natural gas can be a major boost to industrialization, not just energy supply. For example, the ceramics industry, among others. The steel industry. If we had enough natural gas, rather than the steel plants using electricity, their furnaces will be using fueled by natural gas. Okay. So there is a lot more use for gas, but we don't have enough. And we don't have enough.
But we paid West Africa Gas Pipeline. More recently, when the debt situation came up, the government said they were in the throes of making those payments. We had even made an initial payment, right? At least that's what we're told.
You see, the payment structure is like the energy sector itself. It's dynamic.
Okay.
You resolve a past issue. You pay arrears, but you accumulate new ones.
Oh, okay.
And because of your payment record, other entities are cautious in dealing with you because you don't have a good payment record.
Okay.
We owe NGAS some money. And of course, if NGAS has the option of supplying a country or an entity that pays on time and one that pays massively in arrears, they will be careful who they will pump gas to.
They'll supply to the people who are paying on time.
Precisely. This is a business. It's not philanthropy.
Okay.
So we have a fuel supply issue. We also have the situation, we have alternate fuels for our plants. Heavy fuel oil. The AXA plant can run on heavy fuel oil. But that is also imported at a cost. So if you are financially challenged, that undermines your ability to store enough fuel. We also have light crude oil that will power most of our thermal plants. But the cost of light crude oil will be at least 30% more expensive than using natural gas at the minimum, apart from all the questions of environment, etc.
Okay.
But because you are financially challenged, because your liquidity position is unstable, you are unable to stock the quantum of light crude oil that you need as your reserve fuel. One of the plants, the thermal plant, also runs on diesel, can run on diesel. It's a dual fuel plant. The cost of diesel is even higher than light crude oil.
Okay.
So fundamentally, we have a fuel supply situation. And the only reason the situation has not exacerbated is that the bulk of our gas supply comes from domestic sources. And we also, for so much gas, but at least we owe ourselves. It's internal.
That's interesting.
But that...
Not end gas.
Yeah. Not end gas.
Okay.
But that also has ripple effects on your liquidity, on your ability to service your loan requirements, on your ability to raise money, to do other things. For example, the managing director of ECG is on record to have attributed part of the challenge to their obsolete nature of transformers and other equipment. Why are we operating with those obsolete transformers, among others, capacitors, among others? We are doing that because we don't have the liquidity and the credit worthiness to modernize and change our transformers, bring in modern, smart transformers in the quantities that we need to do. So we are under-investing.
So you are inherently admitting that what Samuel Dubik Mahama and his ECG issued and they stated out there, part of which, with your permission, I would read to the hearing of the people who have not yet seen this particular statement. It says the Electricity Company of Ghana wishes to inform our cherished customers and the general public that so far 630 distribution transformers within communities across our operational areas have been identified to be full to capacity due to increased demand. The situation may result in blown fuses and broken conductors, causing outages, especially during peak load period, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. to be specific, in the affected areas. However, we wish to assure our customers that transformer upgrading and new projects are ongoing to relieve these transformers to ensure a more reliable power supply. Customers within the underlisted communities, localities are therefore advised to report any localized outage or voltage fluctuations to the ECG call center, and the number is given, or reach us on social media as it's been known. We continue to seek the support and patience of the affected customers as we work to improve the power distribution service. You've just said that this is a legitimate issue which the ECG has raised, which they are also saying may be the main contributory factor to the current erratic power supply. Factual, right?
It is a part of the story.
Not all.
Not all. Let me give you very specifics. Yesterday, the 12th of March, off peak, yesterday, the generation at peak, or peak load was 3,229 megawatts. Off-peak capacity was 2,872 megawatts. The forecast peak maximum load was 3,132 megawatts. Then we had our exports. Peak period yesterday, there was load shedding of 210 megawatts by ECG. Yesterday.
Okay.
This 210 megawatts off peak.
Okay.
Off
Not
peak.
during the peak hour.
No.
Yeah.
The peak hours yesterday, ECG shared 600 megawatts.
Okay.
So this cannot be.
So the peak one can be accounted for by these.
No.
Because that's what the states here.
No.
Say that there will be fluctuations during the peak period.
No. You are shedding load. You see, we have localized outages. Yes. When a transformer blows,
a term you insist
precisely
on using most of the time.
Yes, because there's a difference between load shedding and localized outage. Mm-hmm. Load shedding is programmed.
Yeah.
Localized will arise out of a transformer blowing or having a brownout or some other thing. So, yes, Mr. Dubik stated a part of the story from an ECG angle. And that side of the story is factual because it is not today's problem. Indeed, we went for the compact and decided to utilize the compact facility on distribution.
You mean MCC?
Yes, please.
Okay.
On distribution because the sector was undercapitalized in terms of investment. So we had the opportunity of injecting $500 million under compact in the distribution subsector. Unfortunately, we botched that compact. And let me say this. I sent the memo to Cabinet as Cabinet Minister for Power and opted for the concession option rather than the privatization. We were confronted with, we were given two options. Do we privatize the whole distribution or we do a concession? With concession, the ownership still remains with us. With privatization, whether partial or total, you dilute your ownership and your shareholding. So we opted for this. And so once we did that, the compact said, okay, we will give you up to $500 million because we agree that there is a need for capital injection in your distribution, your transformers, substations, etc. We are giving you $500 million for this. But this is the roadmap. The Ghanaian companies were to have 20% equity in the concession.
Okay.
And that was when we left office. When the MPP came to office, they changed the composition and said Ghanaian companies might have 51%.
Yes.
So the big boys...
This is what brought the PDS engagement.
Precisely.
Yes.
The big boys left. They left because once somebody else has 51%, you lose boardroom control. You are bringing your reputation, you are bringing additional capital, you are bringing your know-how, but you don't have boardroom control.
People said that we were giving off prize possession, which is ECG, to people that are not Ghanaian and of all the limitations that they had in there. And that we are the warrior as a state about how that's going to run.
You see, greed leads us into trouble.
But that was not greed, that was nationalism.
Listen, it is greed. We were not giving out the asset. We made 100% owners of the entity. We're only giving out a concession. Run it for us for a fee. So where are we giving out the asset?
That clarity many did not get.
Well, people didn't even want to hear because these are official documents. They were available. And so once you change the dynamic that, look, Ghanaians must have 51%. And remember, they chose PDS. PDS could not even provide the minimum required, which was the bank guarantee, that if we put this asset in your hands, you will protect our assets, and that you have the cash flow and the ability to run it. They couldn't. The Minister of Finance had to change that to an insurance guarantee, and there are two different levels of risk. Okay. Even that, they couldn't. They were using cash flow from ECG to do that. So, long story short, we lost the opportunity to inject $500 million into the distribution center. These transformer issues, capacitors issues, that the managing director is talking of today will have been largely resolved.
But this is just 630 out of a 32,000 transformer system we have across the country.
Precisely. I'm saying that, assuming,
Yeah.
and I'm not disputing, and I've always stated that we need to reinvest. We need to modernize. We need more efficient transformers.
Okay.
But it needs capital. And as we speak, the Ghanaian state is the sole shareholder. In business, if an entity has to be capitalized, the shareholder has the responsibility to inject capital. That we are not doing.
Okay.
And so, yes, what Mr. Dubik said is especially true. There is a challenge with transformers. But as you stated, 600 out of over 30 should not lead to this.
Over 32,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should not lead to this.
Is it the scale of the power crisis?
No, should not. Yes.
Should not.
So there is a more fundamental issue.
And you think that's the fuel problem?
And that is the fuel issue. We also have a supplementary issue. A number of our plants are old, particularly TICO and TAPCO in Takrady. As we speak, you have only one unit out of each operating.
These plans came on board during, is it not the John Dramani Mahama time?
No, please.
Really? TIPCO, TACO?
TICO came in. TICO was our first plant during the Rawlings
okay.
time.
All right, of course, yeah.
Then TAPCO is fully owned by VRA. It's also a very old plant.
Okay.
So these plants are old. And when you don't have the requisite cash flow to refurbish or to decommission, so they generate on and off. As we speak, they are doing 1/3 capacity each. So there is that. But we have the reserve margin. And fortunately for us, God has been very generous to us in recent years. We have very healthy water levels. And so,
In fact, excess of sale.
well, yes.
Oh, why, it's going down?
Currently we don't have excess water.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
See,
yeah, the excess water happened, and that led to the
spillage.
and then that, with all the downstream difficulties. So, but the water level is healthy, and so we are generating. If we didn't have a good rainfall over the past 3-4 years, the situation would have been absolutely worse. We have been far more dependent on our thermal assets, and that would have required far more fuel than we do. So yes, we have a fuel challenge. So in the short term, the major challenge is fuel. And we have a fuel challenge because of cash flow. We are under recovering cost. It is costing us more to generate than the revenue coming in. When ECG, and it's not ECG alone, and NETCO, when they lose close to 30% of the power they buy in commercial and technical losses, what's going to be your markup?
I thought they improved it to 23 or so some time ago.
What's going to be your markup?
Who's going to pay for the difference?
No, to compensate, for a product, there's a markup on price. But if you're losing up to or close to 30%, your markup will never be enough to compensate for that loss. And so,
to wait, you sell at a price, but because you are losing a portion of what you're selling,
precisely,
you actually push the price up to a level to make up for that portion you are losing.
You don't, because it's a regulated commodity.
Oh yes, so this one, somebody's determining it.
Yes.
The price.
Yes. And so,
but they understand that there are losses in there, right?
No, you see, there are allowable losses in the industry. But if you go way beyond the allowable losses, you take a hit.
Are these directly due to, are they commercial or technical losses?
Both, the combination. The technical losses are largely due to obsolete equipment.
Okay.
Largely. But the commercial...
That we cannot blame ECG for.
Well...
Or we can.
We still can, because it's a company.
But you said somebody ought to do the investment and the injection.
Precisely. The owners of the company.
Which is the Republic of Ghana.
Which is the Republic of Ghana.
But that's not what PDS was supposed to do.
Precisely. But we chose the wrong body to do the correcting.
Okay, so you mean the concession arrangement was a good idea, but choosing PDS was wrong.
Wrongly implemented, and they changed the goalposts midway.
Okay.
So the big boys with big fans, big reputation, withdrew because they would have lost boardroom control. So there is that issue. But more...
It appears more fundamental, if I'm not misconstruing what you're saying. It appears more fundamental than an incompetent current energy minister who's not running the system, or an incompetent current MD of ECG who's not running it properly.
It is not, you see, it is not just the energy minister or the MD of ECG or the MD of NEDCO.
Yeah.
We have a systemic problem that we have refused to address. In fact, as far back as 2009, the then Minister for Energy, Professor Otinyaje, then Dr. Otinyaje, stated that in Ghana, we don't have an energy problem, we have a finance problem. Remember, no energy situation is static, it's dynamic. Growth, demand is increasing. There are new technologies coming on. There are new challenges. You will need the appropriate finances, first of all, to expand supply to meet demand. You will need the appropriate finances to retool, bring in a lot more IT, bring in smart meters, smart transformers, smart cables. In fact, there are smart cables that if anybody attempted tampering with the cable will alert the control center. But we need that investment. With that, we don't have. But apart from investment, we are not even recovering cost. And it's so fundamental to our challenge.
But ECG has been going around today. They are even chasing hospitals and co for money. How is it possible that they are not recovering cost?
They are doing that because they are not collecting enough.
Upon the billions they recently told us that they are collected?
You see, a billion CD today is not the same as a billion CD yesterday.
Okay, time value.
Apart from time value, the CD has depreciated.
Oh, well, this is interesting.
You see, there are payables. For example, for IPPs and for fuel. These payables are dollar denominated.
Yeah.
Their receivables are CD denominated.
So there will always be a shortfall.
So they will have exchange losses at best. Then,
and it's not calculated and imputed into the cost?
No.
But why not?
No. How much can PURC really put onto the consumer?
Without being seen as overburdening the consumer.
Precisely. A regulator balances demand and supply, consumer interest and producer interest. Yeah. For example, in the last quarter of 2023, and which became operational in the fourth quarter, there was a small reduction in electricity prices, and some bands were put together. However, the exchange rate went against them. So ECG, first of all, and not just ECG, NEDCO, GRIDCO, and VRA are bleeding. On top of that, as a nation, we have never paid serious interest to solid financial management. And therefore, most decisions in the sector, unfortunately, or in Ghana, unfortunately, are procurement driven. Efficiency, driving down cost, optimal financial management has never been our forte.
I thought you were just mentioning that these are systemic problems that were there before the current leadership of ECG or even the ministry came into force.
I am not, you see.
Is this a compounding factor?
You see, let us not just be simplistic.
Okay.
We have a real problem. Decisions across the economy are largely procurement driven.
Okay, that's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because,
but I want to draw down because I'm dealing with an energy
precisely
problem. Yes.
Precisely. Because they are procurement driven, the drive for efficiency the drive for effectiveness has not been there, or at least it's not been given the limelight it ought to in corporate management.
But
let me give you a good example.
In all fairness, this question is important. You who was accused of compiling or getting us involved in excess capacity, it's a word that when the government left office was used consistently. Yes. Excess capacity. Yes. That we struggle to get rid of some of them or rearrange the engagement that the current government says they saved this republic a lot of money on. Is it not a bit too much to claim that there has been procurement-driven engagements of this?
You see, excess capacity is the language of people who lack knowledge in the sector. It's the language of people who do not understand the sector, and it's the language of political apparatchiks.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So all the savings are
let me tell you why I say this, and I'm very passionate about this. In some jurisdictions, they have a reserve margin of 20%. We have chosen 18%.
Okay. Determined by the commission?
Yeah, by the commission. Reserve margin. That is power we should generate, we should have on standby. Somebody else, a political apparatchik, will call this excess capacity. That is one. Two, we are a developing country. We have our president, the current president, no exception, touring the world, touting for investment. Somebody comes to Ghana, want to put up a steel plant. Are you going to tell the person that wait, and it takes an average of 3 years to bring a thermal plant on board? Wait, in 3 years, we'll have the power that you need. Are you going to do that? No. It will not be wise.
Because we need it for production anyway.
Precisely. If you are competing for investment. Yeah. So other than the reserve margin, which is needed to keep the system running as it is, you also need a developmental margin. That becomes an incentive for attracting investment, whether indigenous or external. Because if somebody wants to set up a factory, a manufacturing plant, the power must be there.
But doesn't that need to be net off against losses and at what cost to the Republic?
Please let me. What we have not done as a nation is that somebody must pay for this power.
Okay.
For the development capacity. In other jurisdictions, that is paid for not by the utility, but it's a cost on the national economy. So the national budget provides for that. In other jurisdictions, the reserve margin is also shared among consumers. So it is the way we have handled these issues. As we speak, in the midst of the so-called excess capacity, agreements that had expired have been renewed. If we really had excess capacity, and remember, the emergency plans had a lifespan of 4 or 5 years to give us the space to look at medium to long-term solutions. They have all been, when they have expired, they have been renewed, because without them, there will be a gap. So is that really excess capacity? When you drill it down, is there really? Indeed, the Minister of Energy, and I salute him for that, it's on record to have stated that we need additional generation.
After we have disposed of excess capacity, really?
We need additional generation to the extent that they have signed a new contract for AXA to set up another plant in Kumasi.
Yeah, recently.
Yes.
On better terms, as government puts it.
Well, as for the Spain, it's still take or pay. We can go into the details, whether it is on energy.
A better take or pay than a previous take or pay.
For example, anything you sign under emergency, the norm is expected is that
It's like you're being shortchanged.
no, emergency solutions are far more expensive than permanent regular solutions. That is a state of fact. If you have an emergency, your car has an emergency, and the only part you need, your pump, they say there's only one left, is this price.
You're more likely to buy it.
Precisely. And it is for that reason that all the emergency power plants were of shorter contracts, short duration contracts, so that we can normalize the situation and have better terms
Renegotiate.
going forward. And that is, again, it's not rocket science. So our challenge is, first of all, until we really look at the cost element.
Sorry, cost element like what?
For example, let's take the lifeline.
Now around 30.
0 to 30 kilowatt hours. There is a cost to the lifeline. The lifeline is a subsidy.
Yeah.
Who pays the subsidy?
It should be central government.
Precisely. There's no budget line for it. So it's on the head of ECG and NETCO. And that is what I talk about cost. Let's run these entities as businesses.
Which means you are piling a lot more on the consumer.
On the utilities and on the consumer, because we are not running them as businesses. We're running them as pseudo-social services.
But in the last year or so, we've increased tariffs virtually every quarter. 30. The very last one was just a small reduction of 6% or so. But we've done 30% for almost consistent like 3 times. And over 100% within the last year.
You see, until you drive for efficiency, until you drive to reduce cost, until you run the entities as a business. Let me give you an example. You go to Kasi in Kumasi. ECG has Ashanti Region A and Region B. They have put up 2 warehouses, modern warehouse, on the same plot of land with a wall for Ashanti Region A and Ashanti Region B.
Separating the 2 institutions.
Yes. And then you ask them, are the 2 regions able to optimize the use of one warehouse? They say, look, we are underutilizing even one warehouse. So you ask yourself, why then build 2 on the same piece of land? And to make matters worse, there are also 2 filling stations, one for Ashanti Region A, one for Ashanti Region B.
That's interesting.
So, and that is what I talk about cost. We really have to run the businesses as businesses.
But why does all of that happen to be the burden of only the consumer? Why is it that it's only the consumer that bears the brunt of whichever inefficiency, whichever incompetence, whichever cost effectiveness, as the word you use it, is supposed to be?
Well, it is not only the consumer. The consumer is also a contributor to the situation. Our commercial losses, the thievery, the plain thievery of power. So the consumer is also a contributor. So we are all involved.
Yeah, we can't solve it then.
We can. We can and we must. Other than that, we'll hit the wall. We must, as a people, either as consumers, either as producers, either as regulators, either as government, we must agree that we have a problem. And we must agree to holistically address the problem. For example...
But you are not doing blame game.
For example, no, I am not, because...
Because, I mean, you are a minister. You were accused on several occasions, several times. You were perhaps bombarded more than any other power minister in history. You promised to end doomsday at a period. The current minister, not 2 days ago, says what they are doing is not doomsday, it's doomsday. They are fixing the problem. Problem still created by your very government.
I will allow the political apparatchiks to take that. But putting politics aside, we have a problem. Do we want to play NDC MPP and not address the problem that we have. That is not my forte. I am NDC true and true. But the national interest supersedes any other interest. The national interest is that if we do not, I happen to be probably one of the few MPs who supported ECG cutting off electricity to Parliament.
Really?
Yes. Yes. I'm not shying away from it. Why shouldn't Parliament pay for its bills? Why shouldn't any other institution pay?
Today, they are threatening hospitals.
Oh, yes.
Over 260 million.
Oh, yes.
Is involved.
I agree.
That is hospital,
listen,
health institutions, lifestyle.
Listen. Let's put emotions aside and be rational. When I was power minister, I put the Ministry of Energy on prepaid. I put the Ministry of Finance on prepaid. Take a hospital. Kolebu is a township.
Yeah.
I would want to exempt the operating theaters. They can be on postpaid. I want to exempt the wards, the laboratories, blood bank, those very critical parts which need power 24 hours. The bungalows, the administration blocks, are you saying that they should be allowed to consume power without paying?
And they know the engine running the institution.
Don't you pay for electricity here?
Yeah, we do, actually.
Are you not serving the public?
Yeah, we do.
But you pay.
But our conditions are different. A private entity. The people that are relying on government to pay.
Precisely.
Is government like cutting off its face, nose to spite its face?
No. ECG was registered as a company. ECG and NETCO are registered companies.
Companies
so
whose CEOs are appointed by the executive president.
Whose
board is appointed by the executive president.
Which is ideally wrong. Let him say.
Really?
Yes, it's ideally wrong. And there are changes with companies. I'm the ranking member on state enterprise, and I've publicly stated this. If you go by Act 992, which is the companies code, the ECG must have an annual general meeting. And it is the annual general meeting that should appoint the board. Shareholders attend annual general meeting.
Okay.
So the shareholder will nominate. And then the AGM appoints. So, you see, we started from a certain point. Yesterday's methodology. We are facing new challenges. And so the very architecture of governance, especially with state-owned enterprises, must change to reflect the emerging reality.
I get your point, but you have not answered whether or not you support ECG going after hospitals.
I thought I explained that ECG must put the theaters, operating theaters, the wards, the laboratory banks, the laboratories, those very critical, they should put them on postpaid, that they can negotiate with whoever runs the hospital. But all other parts of the hospital should be put on prepaid. That is a solution going forward. Look, Kolebu's IGF is bigger than the budget of 2-3 ministries combined. So it is the question of prioritization. Managerially, we have not renewed our mindset. If we have renewed our mindset, we will prioritize the payment of electricity to run our operations over conferences and other things.
That's an interesting point. But you have not stated categorically whether going after hospitals is in and of itself a good decision.
I don't know.
No, you have explained. You said that they should separate. No, that's
yes.
not the question I'm asking you.
In principle,
yes.
In principle, the hospital is a business unit. In principle.
The health facility.
Yes, it's a business unit.
The health service unit.
Yes. And that is why there is a health facility registration authority. In principle. However, in the context of that hospital, being a business unit, it also provides critical service.
Yeah, essential service.
Yes. In fact, essential is not even enough. I would say critical.
Critical service, okay.
Yes. So isolate the elements that provide this critical service from the administration, from the various courtesies, the bungalows, from the various schools they run. Isolate that and put those non-critical ones on prepaid. Leave the essential ones on postpaid. And then sensitize the management of these hospitals that your most critical payment, apart from buying medicine and equipment to treat patients, is to provide electricity for these hospitals to run.
I have a direct question.
Yes.
The current energy minister, has he done a good job as energy minister in keeping the lights on, mindful of the current situation?
Are the lights on?
Oh, yeah, no, not always. I mean, clearly.
Precisely. So that answers your question.
No, you've not answered the question. The question is, has he done a good job?
No, I'm asking. You said in keeping the lights on.
Yes.
And I've asked that, are the lights on? And you are saying they are not always on.
Yes.
So that is the mark.
Dr. Kobna, the question I'm asking you is a direct one, whether he's been doing a good job or not. So you should be able to tell me, yes, he's doing a good job, or he's not doing a good job.
What signifies, or what is the best symbolism for doing a good job in the power sector? Is keeping the lights on. Isn't that?
Yes.
And you admit that the lights are not always on. So that is the answer.
How about the ECG boss?
You see, the ECG boss, there is one area I support him.
That's collections.
The drive to collect.
Okay.
The no-nonsense approach. I support that. However, there is a lot more work to be done in internal efficiency, driving internal efficiency within the organization.
I get your point. Now, I understand that perfectly. Now, there are also other issues, right? You hated the word doomsday. Currently, we do not know what to name what we are going through.
Load shedding.
It's load shedding.
Yes, simple.
How do you come to that conclusion?
Because the systems control center tells us how much load they are shedding each day when they have to shed load.
You don't tell me. I don't get to see that.
Well, I'm telling you, that is in the industry, they tell us.
So why are we being told there's no load shedding?
Who says? I'm just giving you
the ECG boss.
Yeah,
says there's no load shedding.
I'm just giving you the final authority on that. He's running a distribution company, and he will want to project the best image for his company. That's what he's paid to do. Ask the regulators.
Energy Commission.
And
the PURC. People are clamoring for a timetable. Do you think it's time we got one?
Yes.
Why?
At least, if you're leaving for work today and you're going to have load shedding in your area at peak or even off peak, you have a right to know. You have a right to know.
I know, I get your point, yes. Some say we are letting go the institutions like Greco and also the generators because you are focusing so much on ECG. Is that fair commentary?
Well, I am not. In fact, I believe the institutions that have let us down most are the regulatory bodies.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Not necessarily the generators, not distributors, not transmitters.
You see, because these are business entities, and because they supply, they're in a monopolistic position, the Parliament of Ghana has seen it fit to put a regulator, somebody to sit on top of them and ensure that they do the right thing. Has the PURC come out to speak on this issue? Has the Energy Commission
Not Energy Commission. PRC has been having some battle with ECG over the cash water.
Cash water, but not on the epileptic supply.
No, I've not
Precisely.
heard them say so. Yeah.
So I am more disappointed with them as regulators. A regulator is not to be liked. And I've been a regulator before. As the first chief executive of Petroleum Commission.
That's true.
A regulator is not to be liked. Because doing your right thing would definitely offend someone. But you are protecting the public good. And there must be predictability
In the sector.
in the role of a regulator.
Regulator, yes. So this proposal that they should be merged, is this something we should explore going forward? Commission and also the
Well,
PRC?
that is my personal opinion. And indeed, I have made that case before my party in terms of the Energy Committee. I've made the case, but it's a personal position that it will serve us well if we merge them.
Mindful of our current financial status and condition,
Yes.
mindful of the fact that we just finished a domestic debt exchange. We've been borrowing to live on for God knows how long. And we have not even paid original debts owed to creditors along the line, which we'll have to pay.
Yes.
And mindful of the fact that ECG, our electricity bills are being on the uptake for God knows how long.
Yes.
Would it be reasonable to expect more electricity price hikes ahead of this attempt to fix the problem?
Well, that is largely dependent on the management of the macroeconomy. If the CD depreciates further, then unfortunately it will have to happen. Because 70 to 90% of the payables of the sector are dollar denominated. So if we don't manage the macroeconomy and we allow the cedi to depreciate further, as the Vice President said, when the fundamentals are weak,
You'll be exposed.
yeah, the exchange rate will expose you. If we continue being exposed by the exchange rate and the sector's exposure to exchange rate losses increases, they will have to recover the losses by price increases. As unfortunate as that is. However, talking that, and one of the reasons I'm talking about efficiency in the sector and proper financial discipline in the sector is that in the context of haircuts and others are increasing their allowances and others by more than 100%. In the same energy sector.
In the same energy sector?
Precisely.
I'm not sure which one are you specifically referencing.
Well,
I have no idea, so that's what I want to know from you.
Okay. Once you have no idea.
But Doc, you have raised the matter of substance and relevance to people. We are interested in
once you have
who is, in times of austerity, increasing their allowances. That is what we want to know.
Well,
is it directly power related?
I'm talking of the energy sector.
Sector generally.
And energy sector has what I would jokingly say 2.5 sectors. There's the power sector, there's the petroleum sector, and there's the renewable sector.
Okay.
Yes. So it's just symptomatic that with all the haircuts, with all the tightening of belts, we must insist on cost control.
My last question to you, which is where we are ending off, is will this current erratic power supply situation end anytime soon, from your reading?
From my reading, no. We will do our best to conceal it, as it's been done. We will do our best to conceal it. But the reality, you see, Ghanaians are living the reality. You don't need anybody to tell you there's load shedding.
Well,
you are living that reality. It is not a press statement or a timetable that will tell you there is load shedding.
For how long will it go on?
So the attempt to do this is an exercise in futility. The people are living it. Until we get our finances right, we'll have the challenge of fuel supply.
Throughout the year?
Well, until we get
an election year.
If we are able to get our finances right, or if the Ghanaian state diverts funding from some other area to pay for fuel on a regular basis, then we have enough generating capacity. In the absence of that, we'll have these hiccups.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest in studio has been Dr. Kwabena Donkor. He's in the Fourth Republic, the only person to have been called Power Minister. Doc, you're welcome once again, and thank you so much for joining us in studio today. I appreciate your time, sir.
The pleasure is mine. Forgive me for my controversial nature. We have to.
Folks, that's where we end today's edition of UPFront.